The Eastern Cape 500, round 2 of the ABSA Off-Road Championship mid-April, will be red hot. Not so much because all the teams have things nicely on track, but also because this route will be totally different to any other they've faced. A substantial part of the event, reduced from 1,000 kilometers to 500 because of recent fuel price hikes, is to be run in the Longmore Forest area in and around Port Elizabeth. This area also hosts the VW Rally, a round of the Sasol South African Rally Championship, and crews with rally experience will have a good idea of exactly how to keep things afloat and what to expect in the sort of terrain the off-road fraternity don't often visit. Although the Longmore Forests only cover an area of 40 square kilometers, the Algoa Motorsport Club, organizers of the event, have managed to find 240 kilometers of roads in this region. Port Elizabeth is South Africa's second oldest city and is a mainstay on the Eastern Cape coastline. Home to more than 2 million people, the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro is also home to several motor manufacturers and is therefore a popular place for motorsport of any kind. The route has fast sections, tight and tricky ones, and also includes some interesting mountainous terrain. Some of the roads are rough, and it's the sort of event in which drivers and navigators will need to drive with their heads and not their feet. On day 1, they make their way to Grahamstown and then Kucha. And on day 2, it's into the forests, and they start off past St. Albans and then Uitenhage. A number of crews competing in the Off-Road Championship have rally experience, which should stand them in very good stead here. One driver who will be relishing this opportunity and making the most of it hails from the Ford camp. Mark Ferguson and good friend Craig West will be saddling up a big Ford Ranger bearing number SP21 in the production car class. The blue and white oval brand have put together a few potent combinations for 08, and this could be another. The driver from Bedfordview is raring to go, and in his daytime job, he's an asset brand financer at Special Steel Importers. However, for him, the passion for anything on wheels, 2 or 4 for that matter, started when he was just knee-high to a grasshopper. In fact, he practically had no chance. His dad was a driver with a very fine pedigree.
The love for motorsport started at a very young age. My dad was very involved in motor racing, and he drove Formula 1 cars, and he drove off-road cars. He won the roof, and so from a very young age I was involved in motor racing. All his friends were motor racing guys, and so that's where my love for motorsport started. I started racing off-road bikes probably in my early 20s, and I met a friend of mine, Craig West, and he also started racing off-road bikes, and we raced those bikes for 6 or 7 years. In that time is when I met Neil Woolridge and Kenny Schalthammer, and Kenny and I became very good friends, and he always asked me to leave bikes and to go to cars, which I did. I started off buying a single-seater from Richard Schilling, which I raced for a couple of years, and then Kenny and I bought a race car together, and we built that race car from the ground up. We imported engines and gearboxes, and we had a hell of a lot of fun in that car. And then Kenny went to race with Bix Carolyn, and I went overseas, and I bought a brand new Chenoweth from America, brought it in, and raced that car for 3 or 4 years.
And why the all-enclosed cockpit variety now after all the special class racing?
I always wanted to race production cars. I always felt that there was a much bigger future in production cars, obviously allied to manufacturers, than there was for special vehicles. It's not that easy to get into production vehicles. I was very lucky that Neil and Kenny at that stage were racing for Ford, and I always wanted to race a Ford, but it was very difficult to get into it. And then an opportunity arose where I could buy the ex-factory car of Neil and Kenny, which I did last year, and we started in productions.
After racing motorbikes, drivers seem to read the terrain a lot better.
Yeah, there is a big difference in all 3 of them. The bikes gives you a good grounding to read the terrain and to learn about racing. The special vehicles is a totally different driving style. It's got miles of horsepower and lots of suspension. So you're not really scared of what's in the road. You can hit whatever is in the road. When it comes to the production vehicles, they haven't got that much suspension, but then again, their handling and the 4-wheel drive is exceptional. So it is a totally different driving style. I think it's more exciting in the productions, and I much prefer driving a production vehicle to a special vehicle.
And the Ford camp, why the move?
Being friends with Neil and Kenny for so long and the success they've had in racing, to want to race a Ford was obviously a natural thing for me. And the Ford team is a very, very special team. It's not a very big team. Neil runs the whole team, and obviously with their experience, it was where I wanted to be. And I was very, very fortunate to be able to buy that ex-factory Ford. And they've just helped me and helped me and helped me, and the experience and the enthusiasm in the team is outstanding. And it's just, we're so happy where we are, and that's where we want to stay. Yeah.
For Hannes Grobler and the Midrand-based Nissan team, who now head the championship log after Duncan Foss's winning exploits in the season opener in Darling, the experience factor, coupled with their unbelievably dominant record in the off-road championship, makes a big difference.
Duncan improved the years, he improved very well, and he's very close, and the cars are all the same, you know, and yes, I think we've got a little bit of an advantage with the Nissans because we're coming a few extra years, but the other guys are getting very close, and yeah, we have to push each other to stay ahead of the other guys.
Nissan have won the national off-road title for the past 7 years, and they've certainly found a system that works.
When we're sitting there in the car, I mean, we're there to win, you know, and yeah, if the one that's got the open road and in the front, the other one's not going to catch him easily.
His trusty navigator, Francois Jordan, called it a day at the end of 2007. It's with a tinge of nostalgia that Hannes talks about him.
Francois just basically retired at the end of last year. He said, yeah, he want to do a few things for himself this year and help a little bit with the organizing of some of the events, especially for Nissan. And I had to get another navigator, and yeah, John Moore contacted me and he asked me, or told me that he's available, and he's a nice guy, you know. And I thought, yeah, you know, to bring in a younger guy into the sport and maybe going with me and teach him a bit of what I know, you know, and in the future he can be a good navigator, maybe going to the Dakar, you know. He's very, very, very good. I like sitting with him in the car. He hasn't got the experience that Francois and the other guys got, so it's going to take a few events to get him right at the top and very sharp, but I'm sure he wants to do it, so and I think that'll make him successful.
Nissan could rest on their laurels, but that's not what team manager Glenn Hall expects or gets.
Yes, I think we basically dominate. What I say to the guys is that they must remember that we're trying, and Glenn and his team trying to get every year better and better, you know, and they're working all the time on the cars, you know, and I think, not to take anything from the other manufacturers or the guys that's also building the cars, but I think Glenn and them are spending more time than anybody else in the car, you know, on the car and developing the car and working on to get the engines better, and that's one reason why they're very successful, you know. And we also, you know, we try to test the cars more and get out of every little bit out of the car. So if Toyota and Ford jumps 1 second from last year, they 1 second faster, we must go and be 1 second quicker as well. We need to stay ahead of the other guys, you know, and that's what motorsport is all about.
There are a lot of new and old faces in the SP class. Hannes welcomes that.
I'm very happy that we got Alfie back basically in the production classes now. It's always nice to have a competitive guy there. There's a few new guys that's into SP class. That's unbelievable because it's not so cheap to run an SP class, but it just shows you that the guys think they can run with the top guys and they can handle that cars, and it'll take them a few events to get used to it. But I'm sure at the end a few guys will come to the front and show what they can do. So it's nice to have the new guys there.
The route plan for the Eastern Cape 500 is due to be driven in rally-style conditions. Will that give the man who's been driving Nissan and before that Datsun for more than 25 years an advantage or not?
I've heard that it's going to be in the vicinity of the Longmore Forest, that most of the rallies down there in PE is being held. But it's not to say that we're going to do the rally roads, you know. You've got lots of roads there, and I'm sure they're going to make it quite a bit rougher than the rally roads, but they'll probably include some of the rally roads. And the area will be familiar to mostly the guys that's probably done some rallies there, you know, like Alfie and myself few years ago. I've done a rally there. And then you've got Mark Ronnier that's rallying there, that's been rallying there last year. I don't think it'll really suit them. It'll give them a big advantage. It'll have a little bit of an effect, but I think it's going to be competitive there. I think that guys like Mark Ronnier is going to pull all the stops out to try and beat us down in PE.
Hannes has been a champion at both forms of the sport, off-roading and rallying. What are the major differences?
Tell you that it's two different types of motorsport, but rallying is like you're driving 12 tens, most of the time, because you can service every 20 kilometers. Off-roads is more, you're driving fast, but you must know what your vehicle can do and what your capabilities is and the vehicle's capabilities. But if you can find a good thing in between rallies and off-roads, and what's mostly important is when you need that to drive, like on a rally 1210s, for certain pieces of the road, or when somebody is close by, or you want to pass somebody, then you have the experience that you've done on the rallies, and that's quite handy in off-roads. You're not driving all the time 1210s in off-roads. You're driving maybe 810s, and when it gets in you push each other, it's probably 1010s,
Vehicle and Asset Finance from ABSA, going off the beaten track. Vehicle and Asset Finance from ABSA, overcoming all obstacles.
Our preview for the Eastern Cape 500 continues, and for the Castrol Toyota team, Father Christmas arrived late. There are some new toys for the boys.
Well, new toys for the new season. So what the team decided was to run Mark, our teammate, in the brand new specification car in the first event, see if there were any teething problems which needed to be ironed out, and then build the second one for the second event. So we're hoping straight out the box it should be competitive. We've hopefully now, with Mark's on, ironed out some of the little small problems that you have with any new car, and hopefully we can go and give the Nissans and the Ford a bit of a run for their money at the next race.
The standard has exponentially risen in the last 5 seasons, and all the works teams are now very competitive. What do you ascribe that to?
Well, the pace is really, really hot, and quite frankly, all the manufacturers are actually on the pace. The difference now between sort of first and in Class SP, first and 10th, is 30 seconds a minute. So we're spending all our time now trying to find those half a seconds. It's not a simple thing where you'll find a big improvement in one race. You've now got to look at things like overall design of the vehicle, suspension layout, and particularly we spend a lot of time is on weight and weight distribution, and also trying to get the car a little bit stiffer, because the stiffer your structure is, the better the suspension can work. So small improvements, it's not going to be dramatically faster, but small improvements, and that's what we're looking for, a 10th of a second here, a 10th of a second there.
Houghton has good memories of the route in Port Elizabeth.
Been rallying there for many years, so quite looking forward to it, in fact. We haven't been down that part of the world for many, many years with off-road vehicles. I'm a bit worried. In the past, I still remember that area as being quite rough, and I think a lot of the guys are expecting a smooth, nice, smooth, fast rally type thing. But I think the organisers are going to have 1 or 2 surprises in store for us. So we're actually preparing ourselves for a rough race, not a rally type road.
And what's the difference for him between off-roading and rallying?
People often ask me that question, and it's very difficult to say what is the difference between rallying and off-road, and people ask you which do you prefer and things like that. And the way I've always explained it is sort of a difference between soccer and rugby. Both of them use a ball, both have got goalposts. They're similar sports, but they're fundamentally different. There's big differences between them, and even from a navigation perspective in the two sports, in off-road racing, I'm trying to keep the driver on the route, make sure we don't go wrong, we're always on the quicker track, and sometimes the route finding itself is a skill. And hence we have things like GPSs and ODOs and things like that. And on rallying, we actually use a different type of navigation called pace notes or safety notes, where we call every twist and turn in the corner. So there it's all about speed, get the driver through the corner as quickly as possible. Off-road, it's about speed, but at the same time, off-road being more of an endurance type sport, there's also a lot of mental support for the driver involved, where you've got to keep the driver motivated, sometimes scold him if he's going a bit too hard, and try and pace the vehicle, because it's one thing to be quick, but another thing to get the vehicle to the finish as well. So it's very much a compromise, where rallying is very much about speed, flat out, all the way.
Houghton has been with the team for 13 years and he's become a part of the family.
Been involved with Toyota in official capacity since '95, so I think I'm part of the furniture with the team. And, you know, I've always been involved with Toyota. They've looked after me well. I enjoy the team. Obviously, through the years, I've formed good relationships with the technicians, the management of the team, and I like to think we work well together. And having been involved with the team so long, I also like to think that my experience with the team and the way the team works can rub off onto, you know, with each team you get new drivers, new personnel always becoming involved. And through having been involved myself so long, I can sometimes point out the way things work in the team and what procedures to follow and things like that. So maybe brings a little bit of long-term stability to the team. I like to think that I still, at my advanced experience or advanced age, still make a contribution to the team from that respect, as well as my normal navigation duties.
After the Nissan Dealer 400, Toyota have their work cut out for them. Nissan have taken the early lead on the championship log after reigning drivers' champ Duncan Foss took line honours. Thus, he has a 6-point advantage over Grobler at the top. The Ford combination of Neil Woolridge and Kenny Schultheimer are 10 further back, with Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst piloting the first Toyota across the line. In the special vehicle class, the burnt-out wreck of Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman's motorized bat is a stark reminder that motorsport can turn ugly quite quickly. The current champion takes a philosophical view.
Yeah, unfortunately, after 4 years of good clean running and no major accidents, it looked like it was our time, you know. Unfortunately, we were running sort of flat out through the field, and we came across an unmarked donga. We were going too fast to try and stop or turn around it, so we had to hit it. That threw the car up into the air, and we rolled a few times. Came to rest on our side, and unfortunately the same problem happened with Naheem Musaji. He was just behind us. He hit it and he rolled and crashed into us. Unfortunately, he crashed into the motor because the car was lying on the side and broke the whole intake manifold, everything, which caused the car to catch alight. And you know, we managed to get out of the car. My navigator was a little bit sort of unconscious and dazed, and he wasn't getting out, so I managed to drag him out. But by the time I'd sorted all that out, the car was too far gone to try and put the fire out. We tried for quite a while, but to no avail. So that was, yeah, one car burned to the ground, unfortunately. So that, I thought, could have been the end of my racing year. Fortunately, Motor Rights have stuck with us through thick and thin and said to us not to worry, we're going to carry on. So we've got the second vehicle, which Alfie Cox raced last year, and Brandon raced that in that last race. Unfortunately, he blew the motor, so we're having to rebuild the motor and go through quite a bit of the car to get it sorted out for the next event. Luckily for me that there was another car that we could carry on racing. So we're in the process of sorting that out now. We need to get up and running again and still take this championship. I think we still have a very good chance of taking the championship because all the top contenders fell out in that first event, so we're sort of still on a level par. It's just the basics of running through another car and setting it up for my own personal style. Obviously, Alfie had slightly different settings on certain things, and I'm just trying to fine-tune the car to our own style at the moment.
Now that he's had a serious accident, how does he feel about the safety factor? How well are the safety cells really built?
The fact that I'm standing here is testament to the fact that we really build these things as strong as they need to be and possibly stronger. You know, we had a massive accident. Our first impact was on the roof. We landed on the roof of the car and then rolled again, and with a second accident. And the actual structure of the safety cell that we sit in is basically perfect. You know, we were both fine inside. Obviously, Achim had bumped his head somewhere, but we were both very safe. You know, the fact that there was a fire, you can only really expect a car to be safe for one accident. The fact that we had one and then got hit again, there's nothing you could really do about that. But yeah, I think I owe you know, as much as Achim says I saved his life, I think he saved our life in building this car the way he did. There's no shortcuts taken in building of these cars. There's no money saved in building these cars. And we're not the only ones. There have been some other major accidents with these cars rolling down hills and having major high-speed accidents. And we were fine. You know, if it wasn't for the fire, the car would have been repaired and we would have carried on. So yeah, I think, you know, there were some melted bits and pieces that are on my helmet. We're not too sure where it came from. But our suits, neither of us were burnt at all. The suits we wear are fireproof, so there were no problems there. The helmets we wear are fireproof, and the bib that we wear around the bottom was fireproof. So neither of us had any marks or any real injuries from the accident. And if you had seen the accident or you were anywhere near it, you would have realized that it was absolutely a miracle that you were. But yeah, testament to the guys that are building the cars. I think to Achim and Bat Racing, this car stood up to those types of accidents. we feel pretty safe in it.
Will they build another Spec 3 bat?
We're not going to build another car. We built the 2 Spec 3s initially, which we campaigned last year. One's gone. We've got some other plans for the future. So we're going to carry on running this one Spec 3 that we left with. Alfie, as you know, is running in his SP. So Brandon is building himself the new Spec 4, which he'll have up and running for the next event. So those are the cars that we'll concentrate on through the course of the year. We won't build another Spec 3, but we do have some other plans for something else going forward in the future.
How fast were they going at the time of the accident?
We've been asked this question. Obviously, it's come up now since this accident, in that it was a sort of a high-speed accident. We don't know exactly how fast we were going. We were 5th gear, but we weren't flat out. So we guess it was between 165 and 175, somewhere around there. Personally, I don't believe it was the speed that caused the accident. The fact that the markers weren't there and there wasn't a marker before the hole. We do get to some high speeds. That's normally for a very short period of time. But the speeds between our off-road, the specials and the SPs are still quite similar. But when you talk about danger comes from something that isn't marked. You can go around a corner at 80 kilometers per hour. If it's on the side of a mountain, that's a lot more dangerous than doing 140 kilometers per hour. So it's all relative. I don't believe these cars their danger comes from their speed. We can accelerate them very quickly and we can stop them very quickly. But in certain circumstances out of our control, that's where the dangers are going to come in. And we've had some discussions about it, and we've looked at going forward in the future is we need to pay particular attention to marking dangerous areas and dangerous situations. And the danger is determined by the size of the hole more than this, and letting the competitor know that it's there rather than the speed that you would be doing. So, it's something that we are looking at the moment, and it'll be sorted out. The overall top speeder that we have spoken about, taking away a few kilometers of top speed and limiting the cars possibly to a particular top speed, which I think isn't a bad idea. And we very seldom get to those major high speeds, very seldom. But we are looking at all of these things at the moment. So hopefully, from the accident that we had and the fact that it was potentially dangerous and we lost a whole lot of money out of it, all we really want to know going forward is that the sport will be safe at the end of the day. And everybody's together on that, so I believe that we will end up going in the right direction.
For rally champion and now off-road navigator Pierre Arries in the big turquoise Atlas Copco Porter, the move from the short, fast bursts of rallying to the long endurance-based off-road events has been quite a change.
It's completely different to the discipline that I'm used to. It's a different vehicle, a different way of navigating, so there's quite a lot to get used to. But I think the biggest thing for me at this stage is to get used to the vehicle and the dynamics of the vehicle and how that reacts to the conditions that we find out there. I need to be able to get a grasp of that, but the competitive section we've just done went very well, so I'm quite happy at this stage, yeah.
The special vehicle class probably has 5 more championship contenders in it than it did last year. Thus, the driving will be even more furious in 2008. The championship log after the travails at Darling makes very interesting reading, and former champion Terence Marsh with co-driver Pieter Groenewald heads the log, courtesy of their 34-second win over second-placed Peter Ruthven and Deval Boshoff in their Rubicon bat. There are 7 legs of the Absa Off-Road Championship left, and number 2 will be tricky. There are going to be lots of blind rises and corners with drop-offs, off-camber corners, and other surprises. The event will start in Port Elizabeth on Friday, April the 18th, and the prologue to determine start positions will get going from Kings Beach. The route is made up of 2 legs and will cover 430 k's. Until the next time you keep it on the road, we'll keep it off-road.
That was the ultimate test, the Absa Off-Road Championship. Now fast-track yourself with vehicle and asset finance from Absa. Today.